How good do you have to be at maths to be able to do well in quantitative reasoning? Do you have to be a maths genius? Do you have to be able to do every single type of question in your head? How much do you actually have to know? All of these are valid concerns, and in this video we're going to be going over how much maths you have to know. So welcome to part 2 of the UCAT Quantitative Reasoning section. In part 1 we looked at what QR is and some of the different skills. So in this video we're going to be looking at the rest of the skills that are needed in the QR section and also some timing tips to help you through. Hi, I'm Loveline. I sat the UCAT last summer and I got a top decile score, and even though I don't do A-level maths and my maths knowledge was only up to GCSE, I still was able to do well in the UCAT and in the QR section. So this should reassure you knowing that you don't have to be a maths genius, and it is still completely possible to do well because it's down to good technique, accuracy and practicing. For more tips like this and for access to my UCAT strategy document, which is completely free, for interview advice and personal statement tips, make sure to sign up to my newsletter with the link down below in the description. Continuing on from part 1, we're going to look at more of the question skills that can come up in the QR section. So let's start off by looking at ratios. Ratios is just the relative proportions of different things. For example, let's say that two people split £50 between them in the ratio of 1 to 4. That means one person has £10 and the other person has £40. So essentially they're very similar to proportions, and it's just a way of representing the split of different items, and it can be for 2 people or for more people, and they can be in a variety of different contexts. With ratios, again, because they come up as a skill, they can be tested in loads of different ways, but make sure that you're really comfortable between converting them as fractions and as decimals so that you can work between them and answer the questions a lot more easily. With ratios, it's also really important to always work with them in their simplest form and give the answer as the simplest form. Sometimes in the UCAT they will have 2 answer options where they're exactly the same, but one of the question options is in the simplest form and the other is not. So you always want to be putting your answer in the simplest form, and what simplest form essentially means is the smallest whole numbers of that ratio. For example, 10 to 20, that is the ratio, but it can also be represented as 1 to 2, and 1 to 2 is its simplest form, so you'd always write it in that way. The next most important skill to know in the UCAT QR section is geometry. So this means you're able to calculate the area, perimeter and volume of certain shapes, as for some of these shapes it's expected that you know them already. So starting off with 2D shapes, you need to be able to calculate the area and perimeter of things like rectangles, squares and circles. So circles, that is of course a little bit more of a difficult equation to remember, so being able to calculate the circumference of a circle as 2 pi r or pi d as the equation, and to being able to calculate the area of a circle as pi r squared, learning these equations off by heart in case the UCAT does not give them to you. So make sure to learn that to calculate the area of a trapezium you do a plus b divided by 2 times by height, and to calculate the area for a parallelogram you just do base times by height. For 3D shapes, there aren't as many that you have to know off by heart because a lot of the time you will be given the equation, but for shapes such as cube and cuboid, it's still a good idea to learn the equations in the off chance that you don't get them given in the exam. Moving on to the next skill in the QR section is being able to learn graphs and understand graphs and time zones. This is a very common question type in the QR section. So many of the questions will have a graph of some sort that you have to be able to understand. So the first step to being able to do well with graph questions is learning the skill of eyeballing them. So this means that just at a quick glance of within 1 to 2 seconds, you're able to work out what the graph is showing you. The way you do this is you look at what the x-axis is showing you and the y-axis, and just look at the general trend. At this point, you do not want to be looking at any data. You don't want to be trying to understand what the data tells you because most of that information won't even be useful. So what you do is you just eyeball the graph to look at what is it actually telling you. Then you're going to go and read the question and work out what does the question want from you. Once you understand what data set you need to be looking for, what calculation you need to be doing, only then do you go back and read the graph in detail. Some common types of graphs that you can get in the QR section include distance time graphs and acceleration graphs or velocity time graphs too. As part of these graphs as well, when you're given tables, you also have the idea of time zones. So if you're asked to compare data between 2 different locations, you also have to be able to calculate the time difference between them and then convert it to local time. So whenever you're doing UCAT calculations, just bear that in mind, as a lot of the time they'll try to throw you off by including time zone differences. And finally, one of the other key skills that I recommend you learning is just the equation speed equals distance divided by time. This is an idea that's often tested in the UCAT, and just knowing the equation off by heart will save you time, and knowing how to rearrange this as well will help you, especially because these often work well with graph questions, so they're a very common type of question. So now that we've gone over all the different skills and different types of mathematical questions you can be asked in the UCAT, I'm now going to go over some of the timing tips and how the UCAT calculator works so you can maximize your score. So make sure you're practicing your mental maths on a daily basis. Even just doing 5-10 minutes of downloading a mental maths app will really help to boost your UCAT scores for the QR section. On the note of timing, it's also really important to understand which questions you should be skipping. Tax questions are highly time consuming. They're very difficult to do. So this is definitely a question type that as soon as you see it, you want to guess an option, flag it, and come back to later without compromising the rest of your section. If also you're spending a very long time on a certain question, or if there's loads of data and you're just really confused by that question and you know it's going to take you a long time to solve it, again, you want to be guessing this and moving on, as again, you do not want to be losing marks on easier questions. Now, moving on to the calculator tips and how the calculator can actually work on your side, even though the UCAT calculator is so difficult to use. With this, the first thing that I'd recommend is becoming really fast at using the number pad. So in your actual UCAT exam, you're given a keyboard to sit the exam with, and you have a number pad on the right hand side. So using skills trainers like ones on Medify and MedEntry and just practicing your number pad speed will really help you to increase your speed so that you're making less mistakes, because on the UCAT calculator, as there's no delete button, if you make a mistake whilst typing a number or a calculation, you have to restart the whole thing. So make sure you work on your number pad skills definitely to help improve your speed at the calculator. The next thing is to use the memory functions. So as shown on the calculator on screen, you have 3 different memory functions. You've got M+, M-, and MRC. Now what each of these mean is M+ will save a number into the memory of the calculator. You may want to do this because let's say you have a very long number. Let's say you have like a 9-digit number because it's got 5 decimal points in it too, and you have to work accurately because your answer options are really close. Writing out such a long number is going to take you at least a couple of seconds. So if you press M+, this will actually get saved into the memory of your calculator. Then you can do any other calculations that you have to do, and let's say you need to use that number again. To recall that number from the memory, you press MRC. Then you do the rest of your calculation. Let's say now that you finished with that question and you want to put a new number into the memory. Then what you do is you recall that number by pressing MRC, then you press M-. M- removes that number from the memory, so now you can put a new one into the memory of the calculator. These functions are very important, as I mentioned before, is if you've got very long numbers, very large numbers, and you have to be working accurately and you can't do any estimations. If you haven't watched part 1 of the UCAT Quantitative Reasoning section, make sure you go check that out as we go over some of the rest of the key skills that you need to know to be able to do well in the QR section. And also check out my other videos, as I have similar ones on all the sections of the UCAT. And finally, again, don't forget to sign up to my newsletter where you can get insight into the medicine application process and access to my free UCAT notes.